the #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.
Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to episode 101. This is the first episode. I would suppose that you could call it in the second season, but we'll just like Joe Rogan, we'll just keep going with the numbers. I'm trying to catch him up, but I think he's in the 2,000 or 3,000s at the moment. So I think I'd have to be doing at least 2 or 3 podcasts a day. And my full-time job would become podcasting, but I'm sure for a lot of you listening to this, you'd love to listen to them. I'm just not too sure whether you have 2 or 3 hours a day just to listen to me chirp on. But I actually spoke to quite a few of you who have listened to all 100 of the podcasts. So I hope I didn't bore you too much on those. I hope I kept it entertaining, especially with all the guests. And we'll definitely look at continuing to do that as we go forward. We've got a few interesting podcasts coming up. This one, I thought, what better way to kick off kind of the second season of this podcast than to get Scott Cutter, who was our first guest on the podcast at episode 1, back on and get an update from him. If you remember, Scott is actually the co-owner of 2 Costa Rica Real Estate. He's been in Costa Rica for over 20 years, works out of the Manuel Antonio area and the Central Southern Pacific, but has his fingers in many pies all throughout the area and also all throughout the country as well. So it's going to be great getting a bit of an update from him, seeing what he's seeing, especially now as we start to see a bit of a turn in the market. I mean, I personally, from a work point of view, helping people invest in Costa Rica, whether that be finding the right property for them to invest in, or helping them, project manage a lot of the builds. I think we've got about 8 builds going on at the moment here in Costa Rica. We've got about another 2 to come on board in the next coming months. So it's very, very interesting. We're moving very quickly, and we kind of oversee everything there. But I think if anyone wants to get in contact with us, I've said it enough. You can feel free to reach out to us. info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com. I would appreciate a review as well. I love to read the reviews. It kind of gives me energy to keep going. So feel free to give it a thumbs up, give us a review, preferably a good one, of course. But anyway, enough about me. Let's get straight into this and let's see what Scott has to say. Good afternoon, Scott. Welcome back to the podcast.
It's great to be back. Great to be invited back. It's been such a successful series from you. I think I started as one of your first guests, and I've become a big fan watching the podcast every week. You've had some great collaborators and colleagues and people I certainly admire and work with. And so I appreciate the opportunity to come back and chat with you.
Not at all. When I was thinking about who I was going to have on the first episode, 101, I was like, well, I think it's only right that I take the first podcast that I had and the guest, which was you, Scott, and get you back on it. So I know people love to listen to you. And I think you have a very unique perspective of definitely the market and also kind of a global and national market as well. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, looking forward to chat with you. My wife and kids would argue that I'm nice to listen to. So at least somebody, maybe one of your listeners will help boost my ego again. So I appreciate that.
No worries. Well, Scott, I think kind of I wouldn't say the elephant in the room, but I suppose is that there's the global slowdown happening at the moment. I think US stocks are down around about, 30-40%. Interest rates are starting to rise pretty drastically around the world. But I mean, what are you seeing on your side at the moment?
It's typical here. We talk to a lot of our clients about the fact that Costa Rica tends to lag behind the United States.
Yep.
They get a cold there. We're starting to get the sniffles here. So right now, to be honest with you, I think you and anybody you're talking to in the real estate world in Costa Rica, it's still gangbusters here right now. We are in a very inventory shy market. There's still a lot of robust sales movement, a lot of interest there. That being said, I'm having a lot of dialogue with sellers now going, guys, this is not going to last forever. And anybody that thinks that Costa Rica is going to be immune to some slowdown economically in the States, a little bit less liquidity, less easy money being made in the real estate market there that can be turned into investments here is just pulling the covers over their heads. So, I think we're in our summer months right now. We've still got a lot of people that made a lot of money in that last upward swing of the stock market, last upward swing in the Costa Rica, in the US and Canadian kind of global real estate market. There was a lot of wealth that was made. And I think we're in a phase right now, Richard, where a lot of the players that knew this was coming probably saw it coming before COVID. I think we probably talked about this maybe in our first podcast, was that there was probably going to be an end to this upward, financial and real estate swing in the States. COVID just kind of extended that a little bit. I think there's a lot of money coming to Costa Rica right now that was smart money that saw this coming, that is cashing out of gains in the stock market, gains in the real estate market, looking for emerging markets that aren't as volatile. And Costa Rica is one of those places that we don't have the big peaks. We also tend to not have the big valleys. And so right now, we're still in that mode of a lot of capital coming here because they see, you know what, my money in the stock market, my money in the US real estate market is not going to be doing much on a 2 to 3 year cycle. So this is a great time to come and invest in a place that didn't have the big peaks in the United States. We have a lot of absorption. We've seen some appreciation here, but it's not the 30-40% appreciation you saw in a lot of primary US markets. So, to try to be concise, right now, it's still very robust. We have a lot of demand here right now. We have a very limited supply chain, but I do think that we're going to start to see that dwindle as the average investor, that kind of mid-level person that may have been pulling some cheap financing out, that was thinking about doing investment, might be a little bit scared now. Anybody but the most bullish are going to start to be conservative about all their investments because of what's going on in the stock and the real estate market in the States.
Well, I think that's really a great summary, is that, again, when they get the cold up in the US, we start to get the sniffles down here. So it's going to take a while to trickle down here. I mean, I think we will probably start to see it, or we've already started to see it slowly here. And that's only going to probably accelerate, as that hits the US. But I mean, one thing, that I think that could combat that, or that could, have a positive aspect, is that a lot of people are looking to move out of their current country. A lot of people, I'm getting the sense, and I have no data to back this up, but everyone I speak to is saying there are more people relocating to Costa Rica now than ever before. People are tired of the political situations. They're tired of just everything going on globally. And, Costa Rica is a very liberal country, that's where our food is fresh. People just do what it is that they want it. They can be themselves, and a lot of people, and it has great education. So a lot of people look at that and go, wow, maybe I should think about moving abroad. And Costa Rica is always in their top 5.
Well, there's no doubt. One of the things that's come out of COVID is that Costa Rica has done an amazing job branding itself, over the last 20 years. No artificial ingredients, peace, happiness, stability, the important things of life, family, longevity, sustainability in every sense of the world. And Costa Rica is far from a perfect place. Those that have been here know and are real upfront about the fact that this isn't perfect world, but the brand got stronger, and COVID made the world wake up about what's important, where you live, how you live, the happiness you have. And there's certainly a lot of wealthy misery around the globe right now. COVID brought a lot of that to the surface. And I think Costa Rica's national branding of itself globally is really going to pay dividends. And I don't think about just the next year or two. I think in the next 20 years, we're going to see a lot of dividends being paid. You said, I don't have any data to pass this up, but I see a lot of people looking to move here. First, that makes what most realtors do is make statements with no data to back it up, unfortunately. But I think the reality is we are seeing more and more people coming here. I think that we've also seen a scenario where the first wave of Costa Rican real estate development, with any kind of volume, was really the 90s and early 2000s, and really probably 2000 to 2007. And people were investing just to invest. I mean, so much of the money that was coming in was all about, you can double your money, you can triple your money. These are the returns. This current wave of investment certainly has an investment twinge to it. People are making good investments here. They see they can make money here, but it's very different than the first, 7 to 10 year wave that I experienced, which was all about how much money. We were telling people, if you don't double your money every 2 or 3 years, you're greedy or you're stupid. It was that fast. And a lot of people were investing despite not wanting to live here, despite not wanting this to be primary, despite the fact that it was this imperfect up and coming destination, because the market was just so fast. It was like people throwing money at the stock market or getting into Bitcoin when it was on a big upward swing. Now, the type of investment coming here is much more legacy oriented, family oriented, use oriented, end use oriented. And certainly there's big groups of people moving here, for full lifestyle change or buying, thinking about eventually retiring here.
Yep.
But even the people that aren't going to retire here, there are people that are saying, this is a place that allows me to create memories with family, use as a business thing. It's going to be a part of my legacy portfolio. And they're happy that it makes returns. They're happy that it seems to be on an appreciating trajectory, but they're also not going, I want to sell next year, or I'm looking to get out of it in 2 years. They're looking at, let me add this into my portfolio of family wealth, into my legacy stuff. And I'm on a 10 to 20 year cycle. And it's one of the reasons why I think that we're going to have a really sustainable track here. Because I think because so many buyers got burned in the last peak and then kind of plateau of Costa Rican values here, at least good realtors are selling with just what the honest truth is, which is this is a wonderful place to be. You can usually make good or sustainable money renting if you need to. And we're going to keep chugging along. And next year, don't expect your property to be worth twice as much as what it is today. It might be if we keep going this way, but people aren't buying for that. And so that kind of end user legacy mentality, I think, fits into what you're saying. And there are people really buying into Costa Rica's brand and what it offers people in terms of quality of life, long-term investment, friends, family, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, it's, I always say to Costa Rica, to people, anyone investing here, I'm like, it's a lifestyle investment that you're making here. You'll make some returns. Don't expect craziness because of the access to finance is not as easy here. We don't see these ups and downs, but that's what makes Costa Rica such a great kind of wealth diversification play, especially outside of the US. Absolutely. It's solid,
And we're seeing that. I think one of the things we are having to educate, we're doing a lot more education of people now because so much is tied to the interest rates in the States, and people watch that when you could get funding at 0 or a half a point during COVID, everyone was buying real estate in destination markets and values were up 30, 40, 50%. I was in the market to try to get a home in Colorado, and I'm a realtor. I can't stomach it. Values are up 50, 60% from where they were a year or two ago. And one of the things we spend a lot of time educating people about, and good realtors should be doing it good and bad. A is making sure people think that speed of appreciation isn't necessarily transferable here. So don't buy if you think this is the same thing's going to happen here as happened in Vail or in Steamboat Springs during COVID time, or in Houston or in Phoenix or in one of these other destination markets. It tends to trek up with a lot more kind of tortoise and the tail steady pace. But we also let people know that they shouldn't be coming to Costa Rica thinking they're going to steal property because things slow down, because we don't have that crisis mode. It's mostly a cash market. We have really low, sustainable holding costs. And even if you're not renting, the holding costs compared to the States with insurance and property taxes are so low. So when markets slow, people tend to go, okay, I'll just keep it here. And again, we don't have the peaks. We tend not to have the big valleys. The biggest issue, and probably the biggest thing that's favoring Costa Rica being sustainable right now, I think, is twofold. One, because we didn't have the big peak in surge in values, big surges in absorption. The absorption this year in Costa Rica is off the charts, but pricing isn't going astronomically through the roof yet. And when you look at Costa Rica compared to other global, destination markets, Costa Rica is still a value. And, and some of us that were here, something I talk about a lot, Richard, is, if you were here in 96, people go, oh, yeah, it's expensive now. But yeah, it's not dirt cheap anymore, but the product, the caliber of the experience, the kind of tourism coming, your experience of the tourism, the dollars that tourists are willing to pay and come experience, they command a higher price. So yes, you could have bought real estate for dirt cheap here in the mid 90s, but backpackers were coming looking to pay you $3 a night to sleep in your place. So it was corollary. Now, yes, homes are more expensive, but when you look around Costa Rica, with the exception of a couple of, really unique micro markets, top end luxury here is still $2-3 million.
Which is nothing compared to North America.
In the global scale of things. So yes, in the Four Seasons, there's a $10 million house. Yes, there's an estate property beachfront in Santa Teresa that goes at $15 million. But in general, when I go to global real estate forums and they say, Scott, we want you to present on Costa Rica, but the minimum price point to present on our platform is $3.5 million. Half the time I'm going, damn it, shit, what am I going to present?
Yeah.
Because most of the luxury project here still is a real value proposition globally. And I think that's a really big benefit for Costa Rica. I think sometimes talking to old school experienced people here, they're blinded by their experience because we're at the highest prices we've ever been. And if you've been here for 20 years and remember land was $50,000 instead of $500,000, it seems like, wow, we're at a roof point. But then you look at I'll tell you, then you look at the caliber of people coming into Costa Rica now and investing now. They have higher demands, higher expectations for infrastructure, amenities, lifestyle amenities. But for those buyers, it's still an infant market compared to places they're used to going in the Panhandle of Florida, in Hawaii, in California, in the Caribbean. And it really takes people to have the right perspective and understand that we're just going into this adulthood phase, in my opinion. And I use that analogy a lot. When I got here, Costa Rica was an infant and it was gorgeous and totally imperfect, just like an infant. Cried, had to feed it and change its diapers, but you didn't care because it was just so gorgeous and untouched and raw. And then we went through kind of a teenage phase where some people that send that kid off to boarding school. It's a nightmare. We're moving into an adult phase. And when I look around, I had a client that was a very wealthy client making, big investments here, 7-figure investments totally in Costa Rica. And he said, Scott, what do you think? And I said, you know what I want you to do? I want you to go to dinner tonight. And I want you to come back tomorrow. And I want you to tell me what you think about there. I want you to tell me about the people you saw at the dinner. And he went to a restaurant. He came back. And I said, just tell me about the families tell me about who you saw. And it was no longer the European in hiking boots and a machete or the surfer dude. It's dad in Tommy Bahama gear and mom in sundress, kids in their polos, taking selfies. It's upper income world wealth that's now made Costa Rica their home place. And for those investors, our upper end luxury market is still an incredible value. And I think that's a really important takeaway. I share that with my agents and a lot of my clients. We've still got so much growth left here.
Agree. 100%. And I mean, even just looking at the cost of construction here comparatively, to the rest of the world, I mean, it's very inexpensive here. Very, very inexpensive.
And I just pulled back. I was getting ready to build a spec home and I stopped because it was too expensive. And it's funny because I say these things to you and sometimes we get blind to our own advice.
Yeah.
Because I knew I could build at $80 a foot or $100 a foot a couple of years ago. I can't stomach building at 150. When my buddies in the States are going, it's got to cost me $350, and that's for cheap mid-level construction. And so that perspective of where we come from and where we're going is really important to keep in mind for us as professionals here, and certainly for our clients as well, to know where we are on that growth spectrum.
What do you think are going to be the products that are always going to sell, Scott? I mean, if anyone's listening to this looking to invest in something or to build something, what do you think is the thing that's always going to sell? Like, always?
Well, I think it's changing, but I think what with this new wave of buyers and I think almost kind of like a new culture of buyers coming to Costa Rica, I think there's very little doubt that resort communities, I think that finished US quality or international quality homes in existing destinations where they're highly amenitized. There are activities to do, there's infrastructure, there's services. I think that those anchors are more secure now than ever before. So when you look at places that you might think as, we had this time where everyone defined the next Manuel Antonio, the next Tamarindo, the next Santa Teresa. And I think that's, it's gonna happen. There will be areas that ebb and flow, but I think that there's a reason why these areas are so popular. And as the next generation of people come, they're coming for the same reason some old timers are leaving. So I got buddies that have been here since the late 80s. It's so busy. It's so this. Oh, there's so many people. And then I got people coming in going, wow, I was here 20 years ago. It's so nice now. There's so many people. There's so many diversity of activities that I can feel like I'm not just by myself. And I think that, really looking at the core supply and demand dynamic, if people want to know what's always going to work. Well, the places that everyone wants to always go and be because they're Costa Rica, they're authentic, they're beautiful, they offer gorgeous amenities, gorgeous service, and it's going to be different. There's not a magic scenario. Obviously, I live in Manuel Antonio, so for me, this place offers that really unique blend of jungle, a real local community with all its rough around the edges reality, but now marinas and real luxury money. And I love that duality. There are other people, and I've got, with our offices up in Guanacaste and Tamarindo, Playa del Coco, that really want resort living. And they want that. And you're seeing places like Conchal and like Pinilla and like Pacifico that are finding incredible traction now, because people that are coming to Costa Rica now for the first time that don't want to be down the dirt road, that don't want a mix of local and foreign. They want and have earned that, so that resort feel. So I think when you ask about what's always going to sell, is don't try to outsmart the world. There's a reason supply and demand works. There's a reason why these areas are the #1 tourist destination, or they're the #1 development destination. It's because if you ask 100 people, 85 of them are going to go, I want to do that. And if you want to be the person that's trying to be on the cutting edge, hitting home runs, well, you're going to have to go take some risks. But if you want to ask me where you can come to Costa Rica and you can pay what today seems to be like a high price, and maybe an old timer might go, I can't believe you're paying that. Pay it. Because in 15 years, there's going to be 1,000 more people that want it. And today's incredibly high pricing is going to be the next decade's visionaries that came here before it was polished.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as the industry, you mentioned it there, as the, and I'll just use some data here, because I remember back in 2005, our average, sale in vacation sales was about $2,200. Today, it's close to $8,000. So that gives you an idea of just the type of client coming, and their vacation's not longer. It's exactly the same. They're just spending 4 times the amount, So as the person coming here, as the destination matures, the person coming here, I wouldn't say matures, but I think it matures in the type of traveler coming here as well, which means that what they're looking for is for that type of product that is a bit of a mature product in an area that has all those amenities. So you only have to look at other destinations and go, where have they gone, to really figure out of where Costa Rica is going. And like, when people are like, wow, you really think I can get $500 a night for that? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, that hotel over there is getting $1,500 a night. People can't believe somehow that, like, there are hotels in Arenal in the volcano getting close to $2,000 a night, and it just blows their mind, because Costa Rica is still a young destination. It's maturing, but it's still young when it comes to, like, go to Hawaii and figure out how much their vacation rental rates are and their hotel rates are.
It's crazy. And again, it goes back to that same kind of thing I was talking about before. You talk about it maturing. We're a maturing market. We're not anywhere near a fully mature destination market in terms of where we can be. I got to go up to LA to do some stuff with my family. And you stay in a 3-star hotel for $250, $300 a night. You want to stay in anything luxury, and it's not even that luxurious. It's $1,000 a night to stay in a 5-star hotel in Beverly Hills or in LA or in Santa Monica in a regular season. And so I think that it's just that maturity question and perspective is an important one. And I think that you just have to remember, you have to remember, looking to people that are veterans here can give you great perspective and can also give you myopic perspective. And so you have to look at, and it's something those of us that have been here for a long time, we have to constantly challenge ourselves on, or is this the best restaurant? Because I've been going here for 17 years and they know what I like and they give me my favorite drink in a little bit larger glass. Or are there 15 new restaurants that I haven't gone to just because muscle memory, and it has to do with food, but it has to do with real estate destinations in general. And you have to kind of sometimes step out of the forest, stop looking at the trees and look at the forest and realize that Costa Rica still has, I think has a lot of maturation left to do. Again, there's issues and infrastructure and things that need to continue to improve so that Costa Rica can blossom. And you start to see it. I drove up to Guanacaste a couple of weeks ago with my daughter on her 15th birthday, and there was ridiculous traffic jams coming in out of Punta Arenas to get there. And my wife was like, Scott, aren't you going to lose your head? Because I normally would, after living at the beach for 25 years. And I was like, you know what? This traffic jam doesn't bother me, because they're taking a 2-lane road and making it a 4-lane road. And yes, correct, it's retardedly inefficient the way they're doing it. Yes, we could build it 75 times faster in the States and 100 million times faster if we were in Asia. But it means there's going to be 4 lanes. And it means that we're moving in that right direction. So it's some of those growing pains, just like you deal with, you're a dad. So, you deal with your kids, you're like, God, I just want to. And you know what? This is good. This is good rebellion. It's good growing pains. It's good opening the wings. And that's happened a lot all around Costa Rica right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good piece of advice. I mean, listening to people that have been here a long time, I think it's going to give you a unique perspective, but you need to understand where that perspective is coming from. And I always tell people that I work with look, there is bias in everything I say, guys. So you need to understand that and where that bias is coming from. So you need to apply your knowledge and everything else you've taken on with a knowledge of, people like us, and then make an informed decision. We can only give you that perspective potentially. But you need to make
a great example. I was up at Conchal, and I got a dear buddy of mine that came down, has done well for himself, lives in Utah, and we were in a house on the golf course. And I had a old time buddy of mine that's lived here, done real estate for years. And then my buddy was just down visiting, and I go, I got the lot 2 doors down from this house listed. And he goes, really? And I go, yeah, 650 grand. And at the same moment, my longtime real estate buddy goes, God, that's expensive. And my buddy from Utah goes, wow, that's a great deal. And they're literally, their voices clashed in midair. Yep. And it made me look, I looked at my wife and said, this is the reality of Costa Rica right now. They're both right. And one of the things that you should do as an investor and as a realtor here is we should share our insights, share our opinions, share what we thought. And then we should also sit down. And it's like I did with my client. I said, it was as much, I was hoping it worked out for the sale because I'm in real estate sales, but it was as much a sociological experiment for me to say, you know what, instead of me telling him what's going to happen in the market, let me get his unbiased perspective on where he thinks it could go, and listen and learn from our clients, because, paradigm and perspective is really important in an evolutionary market.
Definitely. Well, I mean, what properties do you have in your portfolio at the moment, Scott, beyond the one, of course, on the golf course that you just talked about, that are exciting that you personally would look at investing in?
Right now, and it's cyclical. And it's interesting because I started real estate telling people, don't buy finished houses. There were so few of them. I'd tell them, look, yes, that's a beautiful $1 million home and it's cheap, but you can buy the lot next door for 100 grand, build an unbelievable house, hate your builder, hate me, hate your architect, spend $500,000. You'll be done with a newer house right next door with a $300,000 equity position. Don't buy the finished house, even though I was going to make less money. And then I went through a long cycle where I told people, look, I know you think you want to build and you think you're a visionary, and these homes are a little bit old and the finishes aren't right, but the market isn't going to reward you for building right now. So please consider gutting the kitchen. Consider buying this. We're back in a market now because there's such little inventory. I think that if you can find good properties in prime areas that are under their potential value because they're old, because the kitchen, it's so common to see people walk into investment properties and go, I don't like the color, or the kitchen tile sucks, or the bath. And I'm going, guys, a new kitchen's 15 grand. A new bathroom.
A nice new kitchen is 15 grand. Really nice.
And I tell them, well, in the States, it costs 50. I'm like, I tell you what, budget 25, pay me to do it. I'll put 10 grand in my pocket, and I will put you a nice $15,000 kitchen in that you'll tell me is nicer than your $50,000 kitchen in the States. But I'm telling my clients right now, remodels, so the right location and the wrong house are great plays. I'm telling people that land and build out, we're back in that place now where if you're willing to it, and I tell my clients up front, building is a pain in the ass. It's a pain in the ass in the States. So I'm not telling you it's a pain in the ass in Costa Rica. Designing and building anywhere is one of the most stressful things you can undertake. It's big capital. There's unknowns. They will come out. And if you buy a lot and build in Costa Rica, there are great builders, great architects. The building quality and the amount of professional contracting firms that can really take you start to finish has gone through the roof in terms of sophistication, language ability, budgeting ability, and that's all good. Even that being said, you can hire a great builder, and there are going to be moments where you're like, I'm going to kill that realtor, I'm going to kill my architect, I'm going to kill my builder. But we're in a market now where when you're done and you've got a big, fat, beautiful equity position and a brand new home, it's amazing how quickly amnesia sets on. And there haven't been a lot of times, Richard, in my 20-something, 25, 26 years here, where I've told people, build. Right now, in prime areas, and I'm very careful, don't think that you can go to the up and coming area and build and you're going to make money like you are in a prime area. But in the prime destination areas, If you can find land that has good clean water and title and view, and you can create product, you're going to win. And I think the biggest reason is we don't have, with the exception of the mega developments, of which there's still very few in Costa Rica. In Coco.
There are very few. There are very few.
So we just don't have mass product that's come to market with this huge upswing of buyers coming in. We haven't had an upswing of development and new product. In the States, you had new home builds. You had all this stuff coming to market. Here, what we're doing as realtors right now, and I guarantee you can call 100 of them, we're calling old clients. Would you sell?
Yep.
You might be able to get this for your home. And we're out farming listings. And so I think that, what am I looking at doing right now? Buying land and building product, because there aren't massive developments, especially in the Central and South Pacific. Everything's one-offs.
Yep.
And so even if the market slows down, which I'm sure it will, it's okay, because there's not 150 new homes coming to the market. And all we really need to see is 10 buyers every month. And this market's going to keep at its pace because we just don't have new products. So I think that if you're open to building, if you're open to remodeling, you can find some really good opportunities because of that buyer that's coming in now, that's willing to pay the high price for yesterday, but the low price for tomorrow. The one thing that's really important to note is most of them don't want the headache of a build. Most of them don't want the headache of a remodel. They come in with a bigger pocketbook, just like your clients that are now spending $8,000 on a travel package instead of $2,000. The guy spending $2,000, and the hot water wasn't perfect, the Wi-Fi was slow. They wrote you a note saying, yeah, it was kind of shitty, but we still had a great time because we saw the monkeys. The guy writing the $8,000 check is calling your travel advisor going, the hot water's not on. I want somebody here now. And they don't want to deal with the idiosyncratic. And the same thing's true in real estate. So if you can fill that void and be the person that says, you know what, I know what they want and I see potential here, I think there's great opportunity in building and remodeling if you're willing to put that work in.
I agree. I'm actually about to start 2 builds myself, so this should be interesting. So I built Via Buena many years back, and that was a bit of a nightmare, but I learned a lot from it.
And this will be a nightmare too, but you're going to make money. And so again, in the process, you'll remember what I'm saying.
I know, it's like a kid, dude. Like you have one kid, and then you're like, I'm never doing this again. And then 2 years later, you're like, oh, you know what? Let's have another one.
Well, and then you raise them, and there's moments, like I said, you're like, go outside. Yeah. I'm done with you. And I got teenagers now, and there's times where you're like, really, this is what I raised? And then they do something and they demonstrate that they're now a mature adult human being. And you drop to the floor in tears and you go, what do you mean I wanted to kill her last week, honey? I'm the most proud dad in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I must say congratulations, dude. You've done great work. And yeah, I mean, again, I think you've mentioned you've had one daughter that's at Oxford and then, the other one's turning 50. I mean, congratulations.
I tell you what, we get a lot of families thinking about bringing kids down here. It's another, we're not talking about real estate, but the reality is raising kids in an alternative destination meant real sacrifice. And a lot of people ask, what about the kids? What about the education? We didn't have big private schools, didn't have fancy dancy stuff, had to do augment education in-house, our family spending time together. But, now when I see, my 15 and 18-year-old kids that go to some of these prestigious institutions surrounded by kids that were born and raised in the lap of luxury and are treating maids and staff like servants and are classist and don't have a good global view. And you see good human beings who are going, I make my bed and I help the maid take the trash out. How could you not do that? And I think it goes back to that brand and what's good about Costa Rica. And I think what resonates so much with these people is there's so much tension in the United States and in Europe, socially, class, business, politically. And so to come to a place where, and again, I'll talk about it, but to come to a place in a country where rich and poor tend to blend together easier, especially where I live in Mayo Antonio, the draw of it. And, my guys that bring in with these, multi-million-dollar boats, that a lot of them are looking at, should I be in a big resort community? And I love Los Sueños. I sell a lot of real estate there. There's people that want to be in that resort community that gives you the resort amenities, the golf course, et cetera. But I'm amazed at the amount of high net worth families who want to be more off grid or more integrated into a real local economy, even though that means I got to go down that shitty bumpy road, or I got to live in this town that's got it. But it's amazing to see. And I asked them, why do you pick this area? And they go, I picked it because it wasn't perfect. And I've lived 20, 30 years in a gated community with perfectly landscaped yards and 1,000 rules to make everything perfectly landscaped. And the authenticity of what Costa Rica is offering people is really infectious. And bringing it back to my kids, raising kids, and you're a dad as well, raising kids in this environment where they're going to be exposed to both really global, amazing international development and wealth and the diversity of financial planning, et cetera, but also running out and picking mangoes off the tree and, eating rice and beans in the local soda. That duality, I think, makes them better humans. And I think more and more people are wanting to have a taste of that in their own lives with their own wives and kids and grandparents and grandkids.
I agree. Well, my last question for you, Scott, is I'll not keep you too much longer. If you inherited $500,000 and had to invest into a business or real estate in Costa Rica, what would you invest it in?
There's no doubt I'd be buying vacation rental properties in Costa Rica. They are, if you buy in the right area, and I think there are multiple right areas. I don't think that means anywhere, but I think if you buy in these existing high destination, pure supply and demand markets, they provide three really key elements. One, it's a great place for you and your friends and family to enjoy. So investing $500,000 in quality of life, legacy, family, lifestyle, business associates, friends is a great investment. But those investments also provide really great, sustainable, if not profitable ROI. So people looking to put money in stock portfolios and retirement funds, if you can invest in a place that you can use, enjoy, create memories, and improve your quality of life, and make a return on that investment, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 5, in some great cases in Costa Rica, there's opportunities of doing 6 to 10%. But whether it's low return or high return, it's still providing you that family, that lifestyle, that quality of life investment. It's going to provide you sustainable, if not really profitable returns, depending on where you are. And they're going to appreciate slowly, steadily. But I don't think that there's many opportunities for investment in the world that check those three categories. You
I agree.
Get rich in the stock market, but you ain't walking with your grandkids down Wall Street, whistling together, talking about your stock portfolio. And so to find something that can give those three things to you, add years to your life, quality of life, that can create some sustainable in the worst case scenario, and lucrative in the best case scenario, rental returns, and appreciate an up and coming market. I'm surprised we don't have more people flocking to our doors here, but I'm going to keep banging the drums.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, Scott, again, really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're one of the busiest guys out there. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'm sure that we'll get you on later on in the podcast.
201, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, buddy. Thanks very much.
Pleasure.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed that podcast there with Scott. As I'm sure that you're aware, he's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to investing in Costa Rica, both at a kind of a macro view, plus also, his micro view that he has there along the Central and Southern Pacific. Two Costa Rica Real Estate has offices all over Costa Rica. And it's just a very unique viewpoint. Both him and his brother Todd have, the owners of Two Costa Rica Real Estate. So I think that, there is always bias, as we mentioned, in anyone's responses. But Costa Rica is a steady investment. It's kind of a wealth diversification play outside of the US. When things go down here, they typically don't go down. They kind of stay a bit steady Eddie, just because usually people buying here are buying with cash and have that disposable income. I wouldn't say to spare, but to invest here as well. So, one thing I always say to people is that you may be making, if you have a vacation rental, from 3 to 6 to 7%, but then also factor in that you don't have to pay for a vacation anymore, and you start to look closer towards the 7, 8, 9, and 10% there. The reason you have to pay for a vacation is you actually have a place to, to go and use, and you don't need to pay for it. And you can also, offset all of your flights and expenses against your taxes as well. So anyway, if anybody would like to get in contact with us, they can. info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com. We actually have quite a few, I would say, I suppose, projects going on at the moment where investors who actually listen to the podcast have kind of pulled money, and we've actually built some homes here. So we're starting to do that a little bit at the moment. So if anyone's interested in knowing a little bit more about that, feel free to reach out to us, info@investingcostarica.com. Until the next podcast, guys, it's been a pleasure and I appreciate you listening. Bye.
The #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.